Glad you're here. We just ended a series last week, and not going to start another one for about 2 or 3 weeks. And so anyway, this is sort of a standalone sermon, but we're going to talk about it. Willing or reluctant? Willing or reluctant? Well, you may not know this about me, and most of you probably don't. But when it comes to serving God, the first characteristic that I always think of about me, I promise you, it's not willing, it's reluctant. I mean, I know I've done it for a lot of years, but when I think about serving God, the first characteristic I think about is I'm reluctant. I am definitely, when it comes to a pastor here or a leader here, I promise you, I am a very reluctant dude. Okay? Now, I'm not telling you that to feel sorry for me, or I'm not telling you that to some false humility. I'm telling you, I'm not doing that. But I promise you, again, when it comes to being your pastor, it's hard for me to say. I'm a reluctant pastor. So especially, and I've always been that way, but especially this week, I've sort of tried to say, I wonder why I'm that way. I mean, I wonder, and I've really tried to do some introspection. And like Mason says, with a little meditational music. You didn't get it, did you? I know. Anyway, I've tried to do some introspection to see why that I'm that way. And I've come up with a few reasons. First of all, I don't want to let you down. I really don't. I'm not going to say that's good or bad, but I'm just telling you the truth. I don't want to let you down. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, the more that we're together, the longer we're together, the more likely I'm going to let you down somewhere along the way. It's just a matter of time. I know that. I'm going to let you down. I mean, I'm not going to be where you think I need to be at a certain time, or I'm not going to meet the need the way that you think I should have met it, or I'm not going to respond in the way you think I should have responded, and I'm going to let you down. And so that makes me reluctant. And another reason is because and this is hard to say because some people don't like to say this. I don't like being liked. I mean, I know everybody wants to be liked. Some people like being liked more than others. Some people just say, you know what, I don't care if everybody likes me or not. You know what, they're probably lying. But, well, there I go. Now I've done offended you. but I'm really one of those guys that like being liked a lot. Okay? I really do. I like being liked. But I know that if I keep preaching and you keep coming week after week, I'm going to say some things because you know what? Even though we're encouraging, even though we're safe, we still believe that there's truth in the Bible. And if there's truth, there's error. So there's going to be times if I keep preaching and you keep coming week after week, there's going to be some things that I say that you're not going to like. And there's going to be some things that's going to sort of hit you and you think, well, Gary's talking about me. And there's going to be even some things that you disagree with. And maybe it's going to come to the point to where you say, you sort of take it personal. And as a result of that, you say, well, I just don't like him anymore. Well, let me tell you something. That makes me reluctant. Let me tell you why. Because I like being liked. I promise you. It hurts me to not, say things, or it hurts me to say things that I think you may not like. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, it's pretty easy to see that the person who talks the most is the person who is most likely to stick his foot in his mouth. If you never say anything, you don't ever have that problem. But preachers, let me tell you, we do it all the time. So we've got a big chance of putting our foot in our mouth. And I have heard some war stories, and I have, probably shared in a few of those. And then, not only that, but I'm reluctant because the more that we're together, the more of my character flaws that you are going to see. Let me tell you, I got a bunch of them. just a couple weeks ago, I'm on the phone in my kitchen, and I'm talking to somebody, and I don't remember who it is. And I'm nice, and I try to think I'm nice to everybody. And I don't, nothing much bothers me. I don't get too mad and all this, and I'm just talking to somebody and dealing with whatever. And after I get through talking, well, Teresa and Brittany, buddy, man, that tone of voice was terrible. What tone of voice? And I'm thinking, I didn't know I was talking bad, or I didn't mean nothing, and I went, and I'm thinking, my goodness, if I talk that way and don't know it, what do these people think, when they hear me? Is my tone of voice that way? And then not only that, if I talk like that when I'm not mad, golly, what am I going to be like when I am mad? So I'm reluctant. So let me tell you what I do. A lot of times, I want to stay in my corner. I want to keep my mouth shut. And I want to mind my own business. And when it comes to doing anything for God, I'm very reluctant because I don't feel fit. I don't feel like the best example. And I feel like a hypocrite. I just do. And there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing. You know why? Because it's all true. I'm human. I'm human. And while King David in the book of Psalms, in one of the Psalms said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. A lot of times, I feel like I am flawfully and woefully made. Now, let's talk about you. Let me tell you something that I know about many of you, if not most of you here. I know that you feel the same way too. I know that most of you enjoy coming on Sunday morning, just most, like 51% maybe. But you enjoy coming on Sunday morning. You like being around some of your friends. You like listening to people sing. And you might enjoy trying to belt out a little tune yourself every now and then. But when it comes to certain other things in your Christian life or in the church life, you really want to hide in the shadows. You think things like, you know what? I'd rather not mention that about my faith or about Jesus to a coworker because they'll think I'm some kind of good Christian. Or, I really don't want to get baptized right now because that will really expose me to others and expose others to my new faith. And you think, well, I really can't offer some other people some spiritual advice when it comes to their need because, man, I can barely help myself. And they may take it the wrong way, think I'm judging them or something. And I surely can't get too involved in church stuff because I'll be out front. And being out front is the same as being exposed. Right? And who wants to be exposed? But here's what's neat about all those things that I just mentioned about you. I really and honestly believe that these things are true. But not because you don't want to do all those things. I believe you do want to do all those things. So it's not because you don't want to do all these things, and it's not because you don't love your church or love Jesus or love the Bible or anything like that, but it's because you feel like most of the time you feel unclean, unprepared, undesirable, and uncomfortable. Y'all know what I'm talking about? And if you look at your humanity, you are all the above. And I am too. And not only that, but let's face it, there are some people that no matter how long you do what you do, there's some people that's just not going to like you. I mean, they're not going to like what you do. They're going to think you've got ulterior motives. They're just not, there's going to be a personality conflict. They're just, I just don't like his looks. There's just something that's always going to be that way. Well, I want to tell you a story about a reluctant servant in the Bible. His name is Moses. Man, was he a reluctant dude. We're going to talk about him for a while, and then I'll make some statements. But his name is Moses. And let me just tell you how we get to Moses. If you don't really know how we get to Moses, let me tell you how we get to Moses. Abraham had two sons. One of them was named Isaac, okay? One of them named Isaac. And Isaac had some sons, and one of them was Jacob. God changed Jacob's name to Israel. When you hear the children of Israel, okay, we're talking about Jacob, because Jacob was an ornery dude, and he wrestled with God one time, and he came up with a limp, and God changed his name to Israel, okay? So when you hear children of Israel, he's really talking about Jacob. Well, Jacob had 12 sons. Have you heard about the 12 tribes of Israel, okay? His 12 sons were each one of the 12 tribes. Well, so Jacob had 12 sons, and one of them had the name Joseph. Now, many of you heard about Joseph, because Joseph, some of you in Sunday school learned that Joseph had a coat of many colors, And I'll tell you why. Because his father loved him more than all the others, except for his younger brother, which is sort of always the case, right? But except for the younger brother, Benjamin, which came on later in life. But his brothers hated Joseph. So they actually tried to kill him, but instead of killing him, they sold him to slave traders, okay? That was Joseph. They sold him to slave traders, and they went back and told Dad that animals had killed him. But they sold him. They lived in Jerusalem area. Now this is important. They lived in Jerusalem area, and they sold him to a slave trader in Egypt. Okay, Joseph. But Joseph really flourished in Egypt. And you've heard about him, and he was put in jail, but he interpreted dreams, and he started moving up in the kingdom of Egypt. And he actually got so far up within Egypt, even though he was a Hebrew, a Jew, a tribe of Israel, son of Jacob. He moved up to the second in command in all of the nation. And it happened for several reasons, but one of them was, at one time there was a famine in the land everywhere. Okay, there was going to be a famine in the land, but God spoke to Joseph in a dream, and he told the Pharaoh that there's going to be 7 years of plenty, and there's going to be 7 years of not so much. And so what they began to do is, for 7 years they piled up all the food. So when the 7 years of famine came, they would have enough. So sure enough, that's what they did. And when those 7 years of famine hit, Joseph, man, he looked like the greatest thing coming and going, because he wasn't predicted that. Well, they put Joseph in charge of distributing all of that food when those 7 years hit. But not only was the famine in Egypt, it was back in his hometown and his home area in Jerusalem. Okay? I'm not going to tell you all the story, but eventually what happened was, he was reunited with his brothers. He had to forgive his brothers. He was reunited with his father, and he was still second in command in Pharaoh. Well, so all the children, they ended up moving to Egypt. Okay? They moved to Egypt. All the 12 sons of Jacob moved to Egypt. And they began to grow. And they began to multiply. And years passed. And after years passed, the children of Israel, I mean, they were growing, so big that the Pharaoh in Egypt says, we got to do something about this. Now, hold that thought, because in the meantime, what happened was Jacob and Joseph and all his brothers died out. Years had passed. So the Pharaoh who was once there, that knew Joseph and appreciated Joseph, was no longer there. And now the Jews, the Hebrews, the Jewish people grew so large that finally they came into the Pharaoh and said, you know what? The children of Israel are so large that, you know what? If our enemy comes and these people take the side of our enemy, we're going to be destroyed. So here's what they did. They put the children of Israel into slavery. Okay? They put them into slavery. So for a total of 400 years, the children of Israel served as slaves to the Egyptian people. About 40 years before that 400 years was over, or 80 years before that 400 years was over, Moses was born. Okay, you see where it's coming? Moses was born. And then when Moses was born, here's what happened. Once again, those people were getting so many that not only did the Pharaoh first say this, he said, now, to the midwives, he says, when the Hebrew mothers, when the Jewish mothers are having babies, if the baby is a girl, let her live. But if the baby's a boy, kill him. But the Hebrew midwives wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. They kept growing. Not too long after that, what they decided to do then was, they said, you know what? Now, all the male boys, when they were born, if they were probably less than 2 years of age, kill all of the male boys, but let the girls live. So at that time, Moses was born. Moses was born to a Jewish lady, and he was born, and she tried to hide him from being killed. But after 3 months, she could no longer hide him. So, and what they were doing at that time with the boys, they were to take the boys who they were going to kill, and they were to throw them in the Nile River. But instead of throwing in the Nile River, she built a basket. And she made the basket watertight. And she took this 3-month-old boy and put him in this basket and floated him down the river. Right in front of Pharaoh's place. At that time, Pharaoh's daughter was there bathing. Seen this little baby. And said, man, what a beautiful baby. And took that little baby in. When she took that little baby in, because the baby was 3 months old, still needed to be nursed. And so one of the servants of Pharaoh's daughter says, would you want me to get one of the Hebrew women who work for us to breastfeed this new baby? I said, sure. So guess who she got? Moses' real mother. Isn't that neat? Unbeknown. So Moses then, after he was weaned, I'm getting somewhere. After he was weaned, Moses is now raised in an Egyptian Pharaoh's home. He was very well educated. He ate the best. He did the best. But he knew all along that he was a Hebrew. He was a Jew. He was not an Egyptian. But he was living in royalty. Well, let me tell you something. After he got about 40 years old, he sort of didn't like what he saw going on. And one day Moses went out and he saw an Egyptian beating one of his Hebrew brothers. And you know what Moses did? Moses, right? You know what he did? He killed him. And he hid his body under the sand. And he looked around to see if anybody saw it. And he didn't think they did. The next day he goes out, and 2 of his own Hebrew brothers are fighting. And he says, why are y'all fighting among brothers? Why are you fighting each other? And one of them says, who do you think you are? The judge or the prince of us? Are you going to kill us like you killed that Egyptian? It scared Moses. But they were going to find out, and others found out, and sure enough, Pharaoh found out. And you know what Pharaoh did? He tried to kill Moses. So Moses left. He ran away, and he ran, him about 40 years old, to the country of Midian. Okay? And he got to the country of Midian. And he met a wife. And not only met a wife, he started a little shepherd business. Started raising sheep. And he started raising sheep and just calmed down, lived a good life, stayed there for about 40 years, minding his own business, tending his own sheep, not bothering anybody. And at that time, he was out of the limelight, out of the line of fire of his critics, and nobody could point to his sin. He's still a Hebrew. He's still one of God's chosen people. He still believes in God. He still worships. But nothing else he's willing to do. Why? Because he feels unclean, unprepared, undesirable, and uncomfortable. And we'll see that shortly. But there's just one big problem with all this. You know what the problem was? That was exactly the type of person that God was looking for. So God, after 40 years in Midian, 40 years in Egypt, now 40 years in Midian, God confronts Joseph. Let me tell you how he does it. There's a bush that's on fire, which is not unusual for the desert. Many times bushes would catch on fire because of the heat, and they would just burn out. Well, no big deal. But this bush was not consumed. It wasn't burned. So Moses went over and looked at the bush. And God began to speak to Moses through this burning bush. And here's what, first thing, after 40 years in the desert, minding his own business, tending his sheep, out of the limelight, out of the line of fire of his critics, nobody could point to his sin. God says this. The Lord said, I've indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. No problem. Glad. The very next thing God says is this. So now, go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So let's get this straight. Here's what he says. I have come down to rescue my people, and I'm sending you. Well, you know, some just don't feel right about that. I come down to rescue my people, and I'm sending you. Isn't that what God does all the time? I mean, isn't that what God does? I mean, he comes right to us, right at the time when we have been in Midian for quite a while, right? I mean, you know, we finally sort of caught, you know, man, I tell you, the last time I was over there, you don't know how, I mean, I took a beating. I mean, I was burnt before. Man, my sin was back then. I let a lot of people down, and man, there's a lot of people that let me down. I had friends criticize me. I had enemies criticize me. And now, for the last several years, you and I have been in our little Midian. And we've been tending our sheep, minding our own business. We still love God, still pray, still read our Bible every now and then. I'm still a Christian. I don't need anything. And then God comes down and messes up our plans. And that's what God did to Moses. And Moses wasn't happy. And you talk about reluctant. And what Moses began to do, and I've got to hurry. What Moses began to do is he begins to question God. And he begins to remind God of all the reasons that he's not the God. And we're going to look at those. The first thing he said to God, when God said, God will send you, the first thing that Moses said to God was this: who am I? I mean, he was not really asking God that question because God probably knew he was. But he said, who am I? Here's what he said. But Moses said to God, who am I? And I believe he said it that way. That I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt. I mean, who am I? What's so special about me? What can I do? Don't you remember what I did in the past? They run me out of there. I can't go back there. Who in the world am I? He didn't know it at the time, but everybody who was after him 40 years ago had died. But in Moses' eyes, he was unable. He was unprepared. He was unfit. He was uncomfortable. So he said, who am I? You know how God answered his question? He did. Moses said, who am I? God said this, I'll be with you. I'll be with you. Now remember what God said in the beginning? He said, I'm going to come to rescue you. I'm sending you. Moses said, who am I? God said, I'll be with you. Didn't do it for Moses. So he asked God another question. Who are you? Here's what he says. Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and I say to them, I mean, we're not convinced me that I'm going yet, right? But suppose I were to go. And I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what's his name? Then what shall I tell them? That's so funny. Don't you always think about the hypothetical questions when God comes after you? I mean, you always think about, what if God? But you know, I mean, what if I forget my notes? You know, I mean, what if they laugh? You know, I've got high blood pressure. What if my blood pressure goes up? I mean, you know, what if my kids get sick and I can't commit to that? And you know, I might get abducted by an alien. You never know. And here's how God responded to that question. God said to Moses, I am who I am. I mean, you're thinking, I mean, Moses is saying, God, just give me a straight answer. I want to know who I am and who you are. So God says to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you're to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Now what was neat about that was that there was a lot of gods in that area at that time. And they had so many names, and they had so many names because they did so many things. You know, there was the God of fertility, there was the God of the gardens and the oceans, and everybody, because names have meaning. Your name has a meaning. That's why you buy those little tags when you go to, you know, the Smoky Mountains, you know, because your little name's got a meaning. But if your name has a meaning, then that means it doesn't mean something else. But God's not going to be hemmed in like that. So he just says, you tell them, I am that I am. Here's what he was saying. I will be whoever and whatever I need to be. I will be whatever and whoever you need me to be. Once again, they had meanings. And so God answered that question. So he asked another question. He's reluctant, right? So he asked, what if they think I'm crazy? Here's what he said. Moses answered, what if they don't believe me? Or listen to me and say the Lord didn't appear to you? I mean, what's he saying there? Let me tell you. He's saying this. What if they say I'm crazy? You're crazy. God ain't spoke to you. I mean, you've stayed at the, you know, you've been smoking sheep wool or something. I don't know. You think this guy's reluctant, right? So here's how the conversation goes after this. Here's how the conversation goes. So he says, Moses says, what if they don't believe me or listen to me and say the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? Now think about that. For 40 years, he's had this sheep business. And he's been beating his sheep and his wife and everything else with his staff. Right? And so now he said, so he's talking to God and with this bush, and he said, and God said, and he says, what if they don't believe me? And God says to Moses, what's in your hand? This? You mean this? Just this old what? The Lord said, throw it on the ground. Moses threw it on the ground and it became a snake. And he ran from it. Then the Lord would never call us, would he? I mean, if that was the method, we ain't in. Throwing it down's okay, running away, but picking it back up says, you know, we're out. Okay. And he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. So Moses reached out and took hold of the snake, and it turned back into a staff again. And so he said, so he threw it on the ground, and he said this said the Lord, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Here's what he was saying to Moses, okay? He was saying this to Moses. Moses, what's in your hand? He said this. I will bless what you already have. Whatever you have, whatever you've got, whatever you're gifted, whatever's in your hand, Moses, he said, who am I, God? I'll be with you. Who are you, God? I'll be whatever I need to be. And God, what if they don't believe me? Whatever you got, I'll use it and I'll bless it. Reluctant. You think, well, maybe this is enough, but it wasn't enough. I promise I'm getting something. So it wasn't enough. So finally, Moses said, not finally, he keeps going. He keeps going the whole time. Actually. He says this, I'm unable. Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant. Or, excuse me. I've asked 3 questions and I've not been struck dead yet, so let me keep going, Excuse me. Lord, I've never been eloquent. This is where me and Moses get reluctant, both sometimes the same way. I've never been eloquent. Neither in the past nor since you've spoken to your servant. I am I'm slow speech and tongue. And it's thought that Moses stuttered. Man, this guy got prayer. Why would God want him? God, if you haven't noticed, I've never been eloquent. I know I was raised in the best family, but I'm slow. I say a lot, and you know. So here's how the Lord responds. The Lord said to him, Moses, who gave human beings their mouths? Pretty neat story. I got a question, Moses. Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives a person sight or makes them blind? I think that'd be me. I think you're the way you are, Moses, because I made you that way. He says, now go, and I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. So God's doing pretty good answering all his questions. And finally, Moses sort of gives up and says this. Excuse me, Lord. Just please send somebody else. That's in the Bible, guys. You thought it was you. I just thought it was me. It was Moses. Excuse me, Lord. Please send somebody else. Now, God gets mad. We're not going to read it all, but God gets mad. And he ends up giving him his bearing. He said, well, go get Aaron. He's your brother. He's a good speaker. I'm going to send him as your right-hand man, and y'all can go in tandem. And you can do what I've called you to do. And all through Moses' ministry, you see a reluctant servant. He was no different than you and I. He felt unclean, unprepared, undesirable, and uncomfortable. So here's what I need, and we'll give you 6 or 7 things I need you to remember, and I'm closing. Here's what we learned from this story. Here's what you and I need to remember. First of all, God is the ultimate deliverer, but you and I are his instruments. Okay? That's what we learned. I'll rescue him. I'm sending you. Remember that God is the ultimate deliverer, but you and I are his instruments. Okay? Number 2, God uses people who feel unclean, unprepared, undesirable, and uncomfortable. That would be me and you. Right? Number 3, your hiding place was God's classroom. You get it? Your hiding place was actually God's classroom. Number 4, God has promised that he will be whatever you need him to be for the job he has called you to do. Get it? Got it? Good. What you think is a stick, he thinks is an instrument. I don't know what your gift is, but I promise this. Most people in here think your gift is a stick. God, you can't use just this old whatever it is. In fact, you've had whatever it is so long, it sort of takes you back that God even brings that up. Oh, I forgot about this. But you see, God doesn't give us stuff for no reason. What you think is a stick, He thinks is an instrument. And number 6, not only will He be with you, He will have others who join you in the battle. Not only is God not going to leave you, but He'll put other people with you to help you, whatever He's asked you to do. And the last thing, God's plan is your ultimate purpose. Right? Let me tell you something. We don't, if it wasn't for Moses leading the children of Israel out of Egypt, we wouldn't know about Moses. We wouldn't know about anything about him, being raised in Pharaoh's home. We wouldn't know anything about him having a little sheep business on Midian. But God's ultimate purpose for him was to lead His people out of Egypt. And God did it. So, where do I start? Where do you start? Here's what you need to do. You need to look into your burning bush. And I'll tell you what that means. You need to look into your burning bush. And you need to simply ask God what He's asking you to do. And do it. That's it. You say, well, what are you talking about, burning bush? Here's what I'm talking about. Some of you know right now. Some of it's been on your mind. That's what God will impress upon your mind. He's going to lead you to a place. You've been thinking about it. And God's going to lead you to a place, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to think, God, there's no way I can do that because I am unclean, I am unprepared, I'm undesirable, and I'm uncomfortable. Don't do it. So the first thing you need to start is saying, God, what do you want me to do? And do it. In the middle of all that. And if you're not a follower of Christ, if there's never been a time that you have said, yes, I believe Jesus is the Son of God and died for my sin. He rose from the grave. And without Him, I'd be lost. Then let me tell you, everything that happens in your life as long as you're here, as long as you're alive, God is using all of those things as a burning bush to point you to Him. He's got plans for you. Just do it. So I'm going to pray for you. And if there's a decision that you need to make, you've got a card in front of you and in a seat. And you can mark that. You can call me. You can stay and see me. But if you've got something, if maybe there's not a category on that, but write it on the back and get that to me. Let me pray for you, and then we'll have some announcements. Lord, I thank you for these guys and gals. And I thank you for just the fact that they're here. And I know how they feel when it comes to being reluctant. I feel the same way. But it's why we're here. So I pray that all of us will just see very clearly what it is that you want us to do, if there is anything that we're not doing already. But if there is, I pray that you'd show them whatever that is very clearly. And they would say, even though they're reluctant, they would say, okay, Lord, I'll do it. And I pray in Jesus' name. Now let me make a couple of announcements.